welcome to On the Mic. I'm Jake Killeen. Today's special guest is Ben Campbell. Ben's a touring professional from New Zealand. He's a 28-year-old with a fair CV. So I'm just going to list a couple of little things he's been able to achieve so far in his career. He was tied second New Zealand Open in 2017, tied second Bangladesh Open on the Asian Tour in 2018. He won the New Zealand PGA in 2018 and also runner-up in 2017. So you obviously enjoy that tournament, Benny. Tied third Fiji International in 2018. That's a European Tour event. So that was a great little tick off there. And has made it as high as 277 in the world golf rankings. So, and not to mention all-round good guy. So welcome to the show, Benny. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No, it's good to finally catch up again. It's been a fair while.
It has, mate. It has. Hope you've been well. What have you been up to in shutdown? How's that affected you?
Oh, yeah, haven't been up to too much really. It's been sort of 5 weeks and not doing a whole lot. So we're sort of ticking along, doing a few things, and it's sort of we're just going back to level 3 now, so we can finally get out and sort of do a little bit more now, and hopefully this afternoon get out and play a little bit of golf. So yeah, she's been a pretty quiet 5 weeks though.
Good to see you out. Where's your home course over there? Where are you situated?
I'm down in Queenstown, so Millbrook's my home course.
Oh,
yes, so sort of where the New Zealand Open's hosted a lot of the time, and so it's great to be able to have the training practice facilities that we have here, and sort of we've only got a couple more months until it gets pretty cold here, so make the most of it before winter hits.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm rugged up too. It's like, I think it's about 5 degrees here today in Melbourne. So it's already started here. So it's make sure you get out there before it gets too cold over there, mate.
Yeah, definitely. No, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a massive sort of dump of snow. So it's not far away, and it gets fairly chilly here. So like Jack's Point, that closes up for sort of 3 or 4 months over winter, and
right.
And that's it sort of gets a little bit limited. But yeah, normally I'm up in Asia, so you come home for a week or something like that in the winter, and that's about all you have. But so I don't know what I'll do this year.
Yeah, look, I've talked to a couple of guys now, and Christchurch in New Zealand seems to be one of their favourite spots, if not their best favourite spot in the world. So obviously you're lucky being in that situation where your hometown and your home club is there.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I sort of moved down here maybe 5 years ago from the North Island, but yeah, the winters here they are cold and everything, but we hardly get any rain, so it sort of makes up for it. You can still get out and do a few things, and I love living here. There's some amazing things to do outside of golf, some amazing golf courses and everything like that. So it makes for sort of my perfect world down here really.
Yeah, nice, mate. And you mentioned Asian Tour, so obviously you got a card in Asia and on the Australasian Tour. Is that right? Since last time we spoke.
Yeah. No, I've been playing Asia for the last couple of years, and I sort of, when I first turned pro, played up there quite a bit through a few invites and things like that. So between that and Australia, I've spent quite a bit of time. I've spent a bit in America, and really keen to sort of try and give Europe a crack and get over there, and sort of after a few of these sort of niggling injuries, get on top of them, and then I've been close to Europe a couple of times, so it'd be good to finally get there.
Yeah, we'll talk about the injuries in a sec. With the Asian Tour, any word on when you're going to be able to get back playing? Is there any dates or anything being put forward yet?
No, nothing really. We had an email the other day that was sort of saying maybe September, October, but
wow,
I can't see, even if they open that up, New Zealand's going to be pretty strict on travel. So
sure.
I'm not too sure even if I'd be allowed to get up there, and especially if I got up there, to be able to come home. So I know, New Zealand will probably have some of the strictest sort of travel conditions out of anyone in the world. So I'm still sort of with the injuries and that anyway. I'd be probably not too sure even if I'd be ready to play by then anyway at the best. So for me, I've already sort of penciled in getting a medical exemption. So yeah, but for Asia, I'd say at earliest it would be that.
Sure. And look, I don't want to harp on it because obviously it can be seen as a negative thing with all your injuries and all that you've gone through the last probably 10 years. I know that you had some injury issues back 2009, 10, 11 when I was with you, when I knew you back then at Yarra Yarra. But I think it's a testament to your mental and physical ability to get back up and go again. So talk me through that, because to me, I see you as a very obviously mentally strong, and obviously got a love for the game to be able to come back time after your injury. So talk me through when the injury started, and is it something to do with golf, or is it your body? Is it just your body failing all the time? Or talk us through that sort of scenario.
Yeah, I've sort of had three random injuries. The
Yeah.
first one was my foot, which was like Yarra Yarra, where I had this random growth on the inside of my left big toe. That
Right.
I just couldn't put any pressure on it, and they just thought it was an ingrown toenail to start with, and did that, and it turns out I had like a bone growth coming out the side of my foot. So I got that operated on the first time, and it grew back even quicker the second time. And then got back playing a couple of years, and sort of just started hitting my straps. And I had this random chest injury. Just got back from Indonesia and was playing a small event in New Zealand, and my chest just blew up, massive, like huge, and I went
What?
straight to hospital.
What in Asia?
And
Just inflammation, just all of a sudden.
no,
You.
I was back. I just got back from Indonesian Open, and I was in Auckland, staying at a friend's place, and I walked out of the mirror, and like just out of the shower, and looked in the mirror, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And it was like huge,
Whoa.
and
Just one
like
side.
I'm just one side, and it was over my left, so it was like over my heart and everything. So they were pretty
Right.
worried, and I sort of went to hospital, spent a night in hospital, and spent a day in there, and they couldn't, like, there was a lot of fluid in there, but they couldn't find one sort of bag of fluid to drain or anything, and put me on a lot of anti-inflammatories and things like that, and it went
Mm.
down. And I had this for like 18 months and saw so many doctors and things like that, and the swelling went down, but then I was really fatigued all the time, and
Mm.
yeah, saw everyone, and I'd get back playing, and then it would sort of flare up a little bit again, and it would
Yeah.
just like sort of be sore and things like that. And so I saw a lot of people. I ended up sort of going on a massive stint of antibiotics,
Mm-hmm.
and they think that I had some, whether I picked it up in Asia. I was living in America at the time, so they're not too sure whether it was like whether I had sort of a tick bite, or whether a
Right.
mosquito or
Right.
something and picked up something random from Asia. That, there's a lot of things up in Asia that people don't even have a name for, sort of thing.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
um,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's
and
all better
so
now, though. So it's all good now.
yeah, had the chest thing, and then sort of started off playing 2018 really well, and I was
Yeah.
in Bangladesh of all places, and it was in sort of May, I think. Yeah, and when I was playing in Bangladesh, I actually ended up finishing second there. But I was doing a stretch. I got off the plane the night before and woke up that morning pretty stiff, and that went and just went on the bike and just running through my normal sort of warm up routine, and just did the stretch, and my back sort of hip just went bang, and I was like on my knees in the gym, sort of like, when people talk about their back going.
Yeah.
And ever since then I've sort of had this real niggle, and sort of 2000, and I tried to play 2018. I was scheduled to have an operation in November, I think I was, for my hip, which I've ended up getting that operation. But so no, she's been a pretty crazy few years. So yeah, 2019 was very limited play for me. I sort of, at the end of the year, I sort of stepped right away and sort of looked at how I could fix it and get back to it. So yeah, I've got a S5, I think. Yeah, S5. I've got a torn disc there, so which they think's caused from, I had a labral tear in my hip, and I had very limited internal hip rotation. So for golf, I was putting so much pressure on my back, and they think
Right. Right.
my back caused my hips. So yeah,
Sure. Right. I'm with
we've
you.
got the hip fixed. Yeah, we've got the hip fixed now, but the back's still not quite right. So
Right. Right.
I'm waiting to get an injection into my back.
Do you take it on as a bit of a challenge, or obviously you've got to have a negative response to it initially, and then how do you take it on and come back time after these little injuries and bad luck sort of scenarios? How does it go with your mental side?
Yeah, you just sort of chug away, I think. And yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I remember the first time that I was one of the first time I ever played up in Asia. I got an invite and played up there. And I remember I missed the cut and I was headless. And I sort of remember being on the bus and just being a sook really. And like, I just missed the cut. Well, yeah, you're going to have miss many more sort of thing. And I remember looking outside and like looking and thinking, shoot, my life's not that bad compared to a lot of other people. And yeah, I don't know. I just sort of think like that, it's, you're very lucky to sort of, I suppose, live in the countries we do and play sport for a living and things like that. So it's, yeah, I don't, don't get me wrong. There's definitely been times where it's been tough and that I've thought, or I've had people tell me that I can't play golf again sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you just keep waking up every day and you just try and keep getting better sort of thing.
Yeah. I know that perspective, mate, because I spent a year up in Myanmar. So look, I want to touch on your amateur career to start with, because, you reached number one amateur for New Zealand back in, I think, 2011, if correct me if I'm wrong. And you've got a stellar career, mate, because I went through your record and your 2011 season, you had 11 top 10s. Now, you only played, I think, 17 events. So I'm not sure if you even remember that, and 8 of those were top 5s. So, you finished third in the Asian Amateur, third in the Australian men's stroke play, second in the men's match play, third in the men's stroke play championship New Zealand. Mate, you were on fire that year. Unfortunately, didn't quite get over the line in that year particularly, but what a year.
Yeah, no, I remember like, it's a long time ago when you're thinking back then. And I remember just getting so frustrated because I just wasn't winning.
Yeah.
And, but I was getting close. I think that was the same year, maybe Eisenhower as well. I think I finished 3rd or 4th individual there. And I think I was sort of about 5th or 6th in the world when I just couldn't win. And I remember like I blew, I think it was that year or maybe the year before, I blew the St. Andrews Trophy. I was sort of leading by about 3 or something going into about the last 4.
Yeah, and I think you finished 6th in 2011 here, but the St. Andrews Links Trophy.
Yeah, right? It might have been that year, and I was actually leading it, and I just had a pretty like St. Andrews pretty tough finishing a few holes, sort of 16, 17, and I got in one of the old pop bunkers, and then I got in the pop bunker on 17 as well, and sort of I remember like thinking there I was sort of blew like a pretty good chance when I had a really good chance of winning that, and but yeah, it was one of those years, and probably a year that I should have learned a lot more from, and instead I probably got a bit frustrated from not winning, and I sort of, probably which sort of led me down a path with a couple of coaches that wasn't that good. But yeah, I looking back now, I learned a lot from it, but I wish at the time I'd probably learned a little bit more because I was really playing great golf, and it was, the only thing that was costing me was I wasn't a very good putter, and that's why I wasn't winning sort of thing. But I think instead of having some good people around me to sort of help me with that, everyone was searching for something where it wasn't a big fix. It was just something so simple that I just needed to get one, probably every round improve my stats by one putter, sort of thing. And that would have been the difference between winning and losing. So.
Well, that's an amazing thing you say, because obviously you're surrounded by supposedly the best around your country. If you're obviously number one, and obviously you're in the state and country teams and things like that, you'd think you'd have all the help you need.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get too much help.
Yeah,
I think there's I remember, that year just before, I'd been working with Kevin Kirk, a coach in America, who coaches sort of Jonathan Vegas, Patrick Reed, and I think Lexi as well now. And he was very good. And I think a lot of the things you look back now, he made so much sense. And I remember him talking about, the guys when they first go out on the PGA Tour, how much he calls it noise. There's so much noise coming at them. And, it's so easy to sort of get tied up and, you're playing good golf, and then everyone wants to sort of have an influence on you.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, I still sort of was, I'd stopped working with Kevin, but it wasn't because of that. It was I got a good chance to move to Melbourne sort of when I met you, and ended up, because I wasn't going to be in America, he'd sort of organised for me to work with a coach there, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But sort of I think sometimes, I just sort of got taken off a path that, there were too many people involved in it, really. Yeah,
Knowing yourself in your own game is huge. And I think when you're young, it's hard to understand that in your own self, and you're always looking for outside help to get better. And then obviously the older you get, you realize that it's all within you, and you've got to understand how you perform the best. And I've noticed that as a trend with tour players I speak to. It's when they're in a good place with their game is when they're understanding their own self and listening to their own sort of thoughts. And obviously that's
yeah,
comes from a lot of knowledge and information that you've taken in, but you've sort of circulated around your own brain and worked it out for yourself.
yeah, definitely. I think if I had one bit of advice to say to people that were coming up and things like that, it's just, you're gonna, when you're 18, 19 and you want to be one of the best players in the world, you can over search, and then sometimes you'll find your coach at the time, you'll keep saying, well, he keeps telling me the same things. Well, those trends that you do, you're gonna, it's things that you fall back on every time. That's, in the perfect world, that coach will probably tell you the same thing for your whole entire career. You'll get sick of hearing them, but that's your trait. You'll go away and play for a few weeks, and all of a sudden you come back and you're doing this thing that makes you swing bad or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when you're 18, 19, you get sick of hearing that, and you think, well, I'm not getting better, which you are. It's just those traits are going to be what you probably have to deal with for the rest of your life. And that's the tough thing, I think, is, everyone wants to be perfect, where you're not ever going to be perfect. And say Tiger Woods, Adam Scott, they probably have the same traits that they have now that what they had when they were 19 years old.
Yeah. So it's
And
the trust. It's the trust you talked about between yourself and the coach.
yeah, definitely. And then when you get your coach and say your national body or people, in your academy, all with different thoughts, and then it's who do you believe? And yeah, unfortunately, I've sort of believed the wrong people at times. And and that's the tough thing when you're young, is to try and work out. Everyone's trying to help. Everyone is doing their best, and they are all trying to help. But unfortunately, some advice is good advice, and some advice isn't.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Absolutely. And what's
yeah,
the traits that you're talking about for you, particularly to get you back? Say if you lose it a little bit, what's your tendency?
just a few things. Alignment's huge for me. When
Yeah.
I'm not aligning well, I get so reactive. Like I'd say I'm very natural ability in sport. Like I can play most sports quite well. So if my alignment's right, then I overreact. If I aim left, well, I never really aim left. I always end up just tendency to start aiming right and just
Right.
sort of pulling it more and things like that, coming across it a bit more. But that for me, my stance. And then I've always flipped it just a tiny bit, sort of thing. And that's, I suppose, where a lot of coaches haven't minded that, because I've got great hands, and I've always been able to sort of do that and get it back on target. And that's where, say, some people that have advised me that haven't had much natural ability, they don't like that.
Yeah, sure.
Where, I'm going to keep improving that, but I've tried to sometimes eliminate that in my game, and it's sent me so far down the opposite way, sort of thing.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I think that's
yeah,
a bit of a Justin Rose tendency too. He tends to have an open face and, has those hands at the bottom. So I think he's always tried to work on that with his coach as well. But yeah, I mean, hand-eye coordination is such a huge deal in the game, isn't it? I
mm.
mean, if you're a little bit off, and if you get the hand-eye coordination, your rhythm up, you can tend to get the ball around.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's, I think sometimes people get so, they, I think some coaches that have been and played a lot, they get that, and they get that. Well, that's fine to have days like that, but a lot of coaches that haven't been good players, they get so sort of caught up on the face has to be perfect, 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 perfect. Well, it doesn't. It has to be perfect for about this much, sort of thing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
Oh, and the
yeah,
game is a game of imperfection, mate. So, as you mentioned, if you don't play a lot of golf, you don't understand that too much, and you get too caught up in the technique stuff. And I'm a big performance guy, so I mean I like the mental approach to the game and getting prepared mentally and physically, obviously, and to go out there to perform your best. But to do that, you need to understand that the game isn't perfect, and you're going to get some bad breaks out there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's you know, you're so right. There's some good planning and some good preparation, and yeah, sometimes learning that sometimes the funnest days you have on the golf course are, I don't know, I love the challenge of more than anything. So like those days of when you're not quite perfect, still being able to shoot, you know, 66, 67 sort of thing, when you know that you can't hit a shot. And sometimes I think that's a tough thing when you're young, is actually admitting that you don't have a shot,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and saying, well, no, I actually can't hit that shot today. I've only got this one. Okay. And 50, when that flag's tucked in on the left, well, for me, I can't hit a draw today. Middle of the green is a good play here, sort of thing. And yeah, just sometimes I think being honest with yourself. You're not sort of playing with no confidence. You're just playing in yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when you warm up, hit it shit, it focuses you more when you're on the course. It's an interesting thing, interesting dynamic, isn't it? Have you noticed that too? When you're warming up, and you're like, oh shit, I'm not hitting it great. Then you get out there and you start, really focusing in and really picking your targets and executing.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes like that, when you're not hitting it good on the range, then going to the first tee being realistic,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you're not trying to hit the perfect tee shot off the first. Well, you haven't hit a perfect tee shot on the range, so instead of trying to fly the bunkers at 260 that hits it into a bottleneck, maybe lay up short of it and hit your 9 iron and sort of thing. And that's where I think you sort of course management and things like that. But then all of a sudden you haven't missed a shot on the range. Well, grab driver and you can try and start hot, sort of thing. Where I think that's how I sort of adapt to it. Sort of some days I'm on the range, oh, something's not feeling right. Whether it's your body, whether you sleep weird, whether you wake up and you're mentally not quite right. Well, sort of learning to play within that, and I think that's so important. Yeah.
Well, it's your job. You got to find a way to get the ball in the hole, don't you? I mean, you got no one cares but yourself, and it's your job. So you got to find something. You can't go in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it's all about the attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's where it's different from, say, amateur golf to professional golf. Well, amateur golf, you can just go at it. It doesn't matter really if you miss the cut. You're not making money anyway. You're really an amateur. You need to be, running top fives, top 10 sort of thing, and getting recognised. And if you're winning, well, then you are. People will sort of remember your name and things like that. But professional golf, if making one cut that year could be the difference between you keeping your card and losing your card. So some of those times when you're not feeling good, you've just got to grind it out, sort of thing. And unfortunately, yeah, you got no chance of winning that week, but that could mean that, that could be the difference between getting a European Tour card and not getting a European card, say coming through Asia and things like that. So just having that grind and having that fight, I think is pretty important.
How did you find the transition between, obviously it would have been pretty cool being, the number one player in New Zealand, playing all these awesome golf courses, these good amateur tournaments, these best in the world, you're getting looked after, spotlights on you. And then, next minute you're playing these small tournaments on the Asian tour or wherever you are as a pro, and you're by yourself, and it's a completely different lifestyle, different experience. So talk me through how you went from sort of that sort of scenario into pro golf. How was the transition for you?
Yeah, it was a tough one. I struggled for a couple of years, chewed through a lot of money. I think I'd do a lot of things different if I could go back, and unfortunately, I still see a lot of amateurs still making the same mistakes I've made. And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people don't sort of, I don't know, they just don't want to hear what you have to say, or
Yeah.
or things like that. I find it quite weird how they've still got such the same pathway and everything that there's been a lot of us guys go through, and then you struggle for 2 years, and then all of a sudden you come out of it and you're sort of a lot better. But yeah, I just think your amateur events, you're playing the best courses, you're staying at the best places, you're eating the best food. All of a sudden you go up to Asia. I remember one of the events up in Asia, like there was nothing there to eat. We were in the middle of nowhere. I think the first night, like 4 people got food poisoning.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sounds like Asia.
yeah, and you're playing maybe the third or fourth biggest tour in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we were staying in the middle of nowhere. The next morning, there was like nothing to eat. It was like soup and chicken that just you didn't want to eat. And I remember that week there was one McDonald's, like a 5-minute walk, and we ended up eating McDonald's, and that no one got sick after that. But there's been a few times up in Asia where that's really your only option, and you know that like no one really ever gets sick from McDonald's. And I don't mean that that's what you want to eat or anything
No.
like that, but it was such a change because I'd gone from eating perfectly, and you have to have this perfect warm up, and you have to eat perfect, you have to get your 8 hours sleep, and everything's got to go perfect. And then all of a sudden you're up in Asia, you're so far out of your comfort zone. You're eating food that you've never even seen before. Then all of a sudden you're eating McDonald's, and everyone's told you for years how bad McDonald's is. And then, yeah, it was just
the language. No one speaks English. Well, hardly any English. There's so much to work through, isn't there? As a young
you've
pro,
got to get on this train, and that you're going there. You can't afford to, like some weeks up there, to do it how you were doing it as an amateur would cost you 10 grand.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. You can't do that. It's just not feasible. You don't have the money and things like that. So that was probably the biggest thing that I and just the way the courses were set up, I think was quite different.
It's harder, you mean?
A lot harder. Yeah, a lot harder. And just the differences in courses all the time. One week you'll be playing really grainy greens and the grain up in Asia is like grain that you've never seen before. Like it's crazy how much of a difference each week can be. And the speeds of the greens, some weeks they'll be 12, maybe 13. Then the next week you're putting on greens that are 7 on the stem.
Well, it's a pretty lonely place too. People don't realize. I've done a little bit of caddying for some guys as well over there, trying to go for their tour card. And you look around, you go, it's just us two. Literally, you're in a country thousands of miles away. You've spent this much money to get here. All of a sudden, you've got 180 yards to this tuck pin, and you've got a few holes to go to make the cut. I mean, and you look around, there's no one supporting you. There's no one there. It's just yourself. And people don't understand. They see the peaks, they see the Tigers, the PGA Tours, but to get there, the road to get there is a lonely one, and it's a tough one, and it's a costly one. So people don't realize also Asia's, as you said, the third largest, I think, tour in the world. But most of their tournaments are only $200,000-$300,000 price. They're not huge amounts of money you're playing for, unless you finish in the top 3-4, every week.
Yeah. I think like Asia is still a great tour. Like it's just I've learned a lot up there, and I think it is a really good tour for people to go through. There is a major difference from the good events to the small ones, sort of thing. But even I think they're big ones. It's still a lot different to any amateur events that you played.
Yeah.
You go from amateur and you get everything looked after. Where when you're a pro, you've got to organise your own caddy, you've got to organise your tee times. It's not much, and don't get me wrong, it isn't anything, but just
I know what you're saying.
I don't think you get that transition when you're amateur, and then it's finding a caddy that works for you and things like that. So,
well, do you think do you think you should have been taught that a little bit more? Like, when you're an amateur, do you think they should have maybe prepared you a little bit better for that?
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely. I think it's something that could be improved a lot. And unfortunately, I think you still see guys making the same mistakes I made, unfortunately. And it's I've tried to reach out and help as many people as I could, sort of thing, without stepping on toes as well. So
nice work. Now, mate, I want to get into the New Zealand Open back in 2017. Pretty cool event. Tied second, unfortunately, in that event. Great result. But I want to talk about, because you had the lead after 54 holes. So I want to talk about that a little bit. How did you feel with that tournament result?
Yeah, it was disappointing. Like I would have loved to win that one. Like I was starting to play some good golf for that time. I sort of still felt like I was a fair way away from sort of being back to where I wanted to after sort of few injuries and things like that. But yeah, it was good. Like I don't know if unlucky is the right word. I feel like I didn't actually sort of play as bad as I sort of had a I don't know, a couple of times where I thought I'd hit perfect shot and it was around my home course, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they weren't in the perfect position. It was sort of like I hadn't, and that was the thing. I sort of sat back at the end of the day and sort of thought, well, yeah, okay, I did lose a lead, and I unfortunately, I think I was leading by 2 or 3, but
Yeah, so after 54, I think, yeah, 1 or 2 shot lead and amazing scoring. I mean, I think you were 19 under or 20 under, I think, and Brad Kennedy was 19 under, I think, going into the last round. So did you feel like it turned into more of a match play sort of scenario, or did you feel like that's just the way it happened?
more probably like I never really thought of it playing as a match play because I knew there was a few guys behind, but
Right,
the weather changed a lot that day. Like
right.
it was really windy, it was cold,
Yeah,
and yeah, and I probably got a little bit more shocked by the way they'd set the course up a little bit. Sort of
right,
like you got to a couple of tee shots and the tees were so far forward, which like we don't even like it would be like playing members comp off the white tees where they'd put a couple of them, and probably just wasn't prepared enough for a couple of them, and that's
right.
where I mean like I sort of hit a couple of drives which I thought were perfect, which
Mm.
and you can't get angry at yourself. You picked where you wanted to hit it, and all of a sudden I ended up on a rock, and I had to take an unplayable off rocks, and I think that happened twice on the front nine, and yeah, and I suppose yeah, like I didn't play sort of match play with him. I just yeah, I just felt like there was a couple of times where I thought, oh, that's perfect, and you get down there and you had to take an unplayable. Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, you rallied late. I mean, you made a couple of birdies late, and then you're able to make the playoff. Did you have a putt to win it or something on the 18th, or how did that
yeah,
play?
yeah, I had a part. I only had probably about 40 feet on the last. Um, yeah, and it only just missed, but yeah, it was pretty cool. You know, like I had family, I had the whole Millbrook members, I had half of Arrowtown, and yeah, I made a pretty big charge late. I think I 33 of the last 5 or something to get into the playoff. Yeah, so you definitely felt like everyone wanted you to win out of like all the players there. So yeah, it was pretty special. You can be frustrated that you didn't get the win, but I still hit a lot of good shots. I felt like coming down the stretch, and unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't pan out really.
And then obviously you learnt from that because you obviously won the PGA in the next year, so you're able to win that event. So did you go back into the learnings of the last sort of few tournaments where you finished high and had a chance to win? Did you sort of go back into that sort of mind space?
Yeah, definitely. It's you sort of yeah, I suppose a few times like that, you sort of learn the first time you beat yourself up for not getting it done, and then a couple of times after that, where you sort of you can only do what you can control, sort of thing. Um, and I think Fiji, I was pretty happy with how like yeah, I didn't get the win, and I had a really good chance of winning Fiji as well, but I had a bad third round, which cost me, and that was my short game that really let me down there. My chipping and putting just, it's a windy place and you're not going to always hit the green. But to then come back the fourth day and play really solid, I think I shot 5 or 6 under in the last round to sort of only just fall short by, I think it was 2 shots short.
Yeah, you're only 2 shots back, and yeah, as you said, you shot 70. I think you shot 77 in the third round. So I mean, to only finish 2 shots, but I mean, you obviously played 3 amazing rounds. So, and that place can blow. so,
Yeah, definitely.
so
Yeah, so it's no, I suppose after looking, and going over a lot of tournaments, I sort of always try and find the positive, pick out a
yeah,
couple of things that I can do better, but sort of not spend too much time, going over what was bad.
that's
Just
right. Yeah.
yeah, and I like to sit down with a caddy afterwards after we've gone close and haven't quite got there, and just get his opinion on okay, maybe where we made a couple of bad calls and things like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
I
not
think
much
if we just
difference, is there? Decision making, the difference between 71 and a 65 is not too much, right? A little bit of
no.
luck, couple of putts, decisions, is
Yeah, and that's for me. Those times which I haven't got the win, it's come down to putting and short game for me. Like the putting's huge, and I think that's what I learned in America so much is those guys over there. They putt it amazing, and in the way that they sort of their mindset and everything over there. It's not sort of like New Zealand were very bad. Say you might go out and you shoot 65 and you have 24 putts.
Yeah.
And people go, oh man, he got lucky today. He had 24 putts. No wonder he shot 65. We're in the States. It's so much different. Man, he was on fire. He was putting amazing. He had 24 putts. Like he never looked like missing. And it's sort of
yeah.
they don't think of it as luck. They think, yeah, he's just a good putter, and that's what he's going to always do.
Right.
And
Yeah. Well, yeah. Talk us through the little bit of time over there because you went to Q school over there. I think in 2017, right? You had a crack there.
Yeah, so it must have been. I went to college over there for a little bit in 2010. Then I obviously came to Melbourne, and then I went back there, and I had status on the Latin American tour.
Yeah.
And I played my first year. I spent probably 8 months in America, based out of sort of place called the Woodlands in Houston. So it was cool. I practiced a bit with Jonathan Vegas, and he was a really good guy. And Patrick Reed was there, and there was quite a few. Yeah, there must have been sort of 15 tour players. Bobby Gates, Bronson Burgoon, who's now playing the PGA Tour, and we played so much with them. And and so I suppose those years you sort of learnt a lot, and it was just so different their golf to how we play golf down here. Like,
is it less perfect? Is that what you mean?
Oh, so less perfect. All they care about is just
get it in.
And those guys are some of the most amazing putters, and they've got some of the worst strokes. But they can putt so good, or they swing wise. I can't remember his name. I don't think it was Roland Thatcher. I remember playing with a guy in the States, and we played with Jonathan Vegas. I was good friends with his Julio. I'm good friends with his brother.
Yeah.
And so we were playing one day, and I never forget this guy. I can't remember his name actually, but he won on the next week. He won on the PGA Tour, and I thought he was one of Jonathan's friends. Like he was. You could tell he could play golf, but I never thought the guy would have won on the PGA Tour. He putted it amazingly.
Right.
And I remember watching the PGA Tour the next week, and he rolls in a putt to win on the PGA Tour, and I'm like, oh my god, but he putted incredible, and that I remember that. It's all it comes down to me is if you can get the putter rolling.
You're talking there putting it in a lot more from 6 to 10 feet, or you're talking 10 to 15 feet? Like, what's the difference there, you think?
Oh, everything.
Everything.
They just putt. I don't know what it is. Like those guys. Like everyone talks about Jonathan, how on the PGA Tour he's not that good a putter. I've played with him. He putts it good. Like he's
right
sort of thing. And so I suppose I remember I played with Ernie Els one time, and he, to me, inside 3 feet, he didn't look good over the putter. But outside of 3 feet, he was still to this day one of the best distance. He holds so many putts that day. And I remember thinking, everyone talks about how bad a putter he was. And that day he putted amazing. I think he missed one small one, which to me, inside of 3 feet, he didn't look good. He didn't look like a good putter. But outside of that, he holds so many putts. And I think those guys, it's just a mindset. They just get used to holding those putts. And
So you got out of that trip more than anything was 10 to 15 feet. I need to work on that sort of range.
just all putting, And just they just get up and down so much. And that's from everything. You play these mini tours, and I was playing the Adams Tour, so it was sort of around Texas and around the South sort of thing. And those guys, they didn't care about their swings. Okay, they had one shot a lot of the time, and that's all they had. And there's a lot of those guys now that have had years on the PGA Tour, or are very good players on the web, it's just the name of golf, isn't it? You got to get the ball in the hole in the least amount of strokes, and I think sometimes that's easily forgotten. To me, the difference between the guys on the Australian Tour and the guys on the PGA Tour, ball striking wise, there's probably not much. Okay, top guns there is. Top maybe 20 in the world. Outside of that, those guys the difference is they hole 1 to 2 more putts around than what the guys on the Aussie Tour hole. I remember Aussie Open played one year with Jordan Spieth in the final round, and I think we were maybe 8 shots off the lead. So the first hole he rolled in, no, he horseshoed about a 14-footer. Then the next hole he holed like at least a 40-footer. And then he hit a wedge into about 10, 15, it would have been about 10 feet, breaking left to right, and it just died on the low side. And we're walking to the next tee, and he's like, for God's sakes, Jordan, if you want to win today, you've got to have 24 putts or less. And then he turns to his caddy and said to him, every putt I hit with the wrong speed today, I owe you $100. And that was his mindset, that under 24 putts was he could win.
Oh, he's still good at the moment. Obviously, he's struggling with his ball striking, I think, compared to where he was. But yeah, anything outside 10 feet, he was just unbelievable, wasn't he? He's just unbelievable from that range. And the mindset.
His mindset was different to anyone I'd ever seen putting. Like he just, everything was for speed for him. Like speed was so perfect, but it'd be like a 40-footer with breaking 3 different ways, and he'd miss it by like half a cup. And
trying to hold everything. Trying to hold everything.
He'd blow up about how they misread it, and you're like, yeah,
poor caddy.
Yeah.
But, and that was interesting too. 8 shots back, and so would you have that? Have you learned from that mindset? Are you in that same sort of mindset where 8 shots back, I can win this?
Yeah, like I was quite surprised. Like it was, and it was an easy day. But yeah, just that was his mindset, and it was quite different to say all the sports sites you see and everything. Like everything was sort of outcome focused. Like he was so determined on winning, and like the process was still there, but I don't know, it was quite different to say a sports psych where they don't want you thinking about that sort of stuff.
Right.
They just want you to do the process, where he was obviously thinking, well, I've got still a good chance to win this.
Yeah, he found the fire in wanting to win, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, but no, I think, I don't know, maybe 8 shots up. And that's, where you've got to improve, and you've got to, that was a day that I definitely learned a lot, sort of thing. It was, ball striking wise, I felt like I hit it better than him. And I think at the time he was number 1 or number 2 in the world.
Good guy.
So it was really good guy. Yeah, great guy. I think he was, couldn't have been a nicer guy really to play with and chatted away. Luckily I knew, because I'd spent a lot of time in Texas, I actually knew a couple of his very good friends. And I think Kelly Craft obviously saw that I was playing with him that day, and sort of reached out and said, "Oh, I know Benny Radiara." And so we jumped on the first tee, and he was like, "Oh, Kelly." Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. Sort of like
had a bit of common.
A few things. Yeah.
Who's the best player you've played with then? I mean, obviously number 1 in the world, you can't really go past Spieth, but who do you find the best player you've played with, or the best golfer?
That's a good question. I'd say Jordan would be hands down the best chipper putter I've ever played with.
Yeah.
No one's probably come close to his chipping and putting. I don't know if that's, no one really probably talks about his chipping as much as what they do as putting. But yeah, he was, I played with Rummy, and that Rummy's, don't get me wrong, Rummy is amazing short game. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say Jordan was a lot better than him, but I don't know. He maybe because his putting was so good that he got up and down from some places that you thought were impossible, and he didn't even make it look hard. Like it was, you were thinking, I remember one time I was like, man, if he gets this inside 10 feet, like it's amazing. And he hit it to 2 feet and walked up and tapped it in. And he was like, I would have, it was just different like that. But
it's got to give you confidence, mate, when you can do that from anywhere, and you've got 160 to the flag, 180, or you're approaching the green, and you'll get up and down if you miss. It's got to have some sort of confidence with
You just start going at everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he did go at a lot of stuff. But ball striking wise, Ernie's irons were good. You could see he probably didn't drive it as good as what I thought he would, but Ernie's irons he was very good.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a hard
Yeah,
question, I think, because I mean, on your day too, I mean, you're as good as anyone in the world, and that's the thing with golf. It's you know, you can do it. It's just putting it together over 4 rounds and being just on top of everyone else. I mean, to win a tournament, not many people win by 5, 10 shots. It's always one playoff. So you're only this much better, aren't you? So on that week. So I mean, I think it's a
yeah,
hard question to actually ask someone, to be honest. And
yeah. I think, yeah. Actually, thinking about it now, like Jonathan Vegas, I played a few times with him. When he's on, he's
yeah.
ball striking wise, like those guys have just got the sound. Like there's a
Mm,
sound to it, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, he's definitely up there. Adam Scott's got that same sound. I'll never forget. Like I've never played with him, but he's by far the most impressive I've seen.
Yeah.
Like on the range, I remember warming up and he's right next to me, and it was just the sound every time, and you're like, whew, oh, he's in that good. Yeah,
Yeah, the
but yeah, I
repetitive
think
nature of it, isn't it? Sorry to cut you off there. I remember watching the Shark, actually, Greg Norman. I think it's one of the President's Cup when I was really young. I can't remember the year, but he was at Royal Melbourne hitting driver, and
yeah,
I'll never forget it, mate. He hit driver. I reckon I watched 20, and they would have all bounced within maybe a 3 meter squared spot, and the ball flight
yeah,
was the same, sound the same. I was just like, oh, that is just a different level. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I remember the same thing. Adam Scott was hitting these drivers, and he was calling them to his caddy, and just saying, "Okay, like starting it here, finishing there," and it was just like, "Pew, perfect," and doing the opposite, and it was both ways, high, low, like it was, and you were like, "Yeah, this guy's pretty impressive."
Yeah, nice, mate. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. I've got actually a fan question. My wife Libby actually wanted to know what's in your golf bag, mate. She wants to know what you're running with at the moment in the bag.
At the moment, I'll just running the old, I'm actually running, still got the old Titleist irons. I haven't actually got the new ones yet, but
Right,
yeah. So now I just run the blades. I've
Blaze.
recently changed, running 3 wedges now. So or
Yep.
4 wedges, I mean, pitching
Right.
wedge, 51, then a 55 and a 60.
Right.
So yeah, and I've been loving that actually. I haven't ever played that before, but I was just finding up in Asia. I just my stats just were showing like my wedge play was really letting me down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for me, yeah, definitely my strengths normally my iron play.
Sure.
So I felt like I could, you know, either really step on a 4 iron or play a hybrid easy. So I sort of mix out my 3 iron and my hybrid depending
Right.
on the courses.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of the two changes I make. Yeah, and then just Titleist. Got the Titleist Scotty Cameron sort of got a center shaft in there at the moment. So
Nice.
yeah, no, it's sort of Titleist everything really.
So with the 4 wedges, is that more around the greens, or is that for fuller shots? You just want to sort of bring the gap in a little bit more with your fuller wedge shots.
Yeah, I just found with the really grainy grass up there, not playing it. You know, we don't have any of that here in New Zealand. I just
Mm.
found I was a lot better if I could hit a full shot into it.
Yep.
So yeah, like before that, I was running pitching wedge, a 50, like a 53, and then a 58. But I just found there was, yeah, I was just stuffing up too many easy wedge shots because you were trying to be too dinky with it
Right.
when you're
Right.
hitting into the grain, and I just, yeah. So
Want to
mainly
commit
for that,
more.
yeah. And I actually played a 60-degree wedge, um, because I broke mine. I had to hit a shot off a cart path with a 58, and it messed up the whole face. And then I was up there, and all I could get my hands on was a 60. And I had 2 weeks up there, and my chipping was actually a lot better. And I found it so much easier with a 60-degree than the 58. It doesn't sound like much, but I just felt more comfortable. So that was to me the big difference to go to 4 wedges, because I just didn't. Yeah, there was too much bigger gap going from 53 to 60. So yeah, it was a bit mix of a few things, but just a bit more of a comfort level more than anything.
Yeah, nice one, mate. So are you as hard on yourself these days as you used to be? Or you?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm still pretty tough. Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just the personality.
no, yeah, I think so. You know, it's I think, that's why I love golf, because of the challenge sort of thing. And yeah, I think, I have seen, you've worked with people and things like that. And I think that's sort of, I don't know, what motivates me a lot of the time, is trying to be as good as you can be. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I don't think sometimes being tough on yourself's a bad thing. It brings the expectation up, and I think that can help you in a lot of ways.
Talk me through your preparation in terms of your nutrition and leading up to a tournament, like a week out. I want to know a week out what you do. Do you train less, prepare more in other ways? Talk me through a tournament week and how you prepare.
Yeah, so if I'm still in Queenstown and I'm heading up to Asia, then I'll sort of try and start adjusting to the time difference there. So all of a sudden, like, I'll try
Yeah.
and go to bed a bit later. So the first night, like normally here, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, sort of thing. And yeah, so then I just try and keep pushing it out, and normally try and match the time difference. So it might mean that I stay up till midnight, and then I try and get up at 9 o'clock in the morning here. And that's probably one of the keys, the main thing I do. So sort of when I get up there, I can still sleep. I don't know, I need my sleep, so it's sort of quite important to me. And then
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I sort of, I tone back on, normally I'm lucky here at Millbrook, I can jump in a cart and play in as many holes as I want. So normally leading up to going away, I sort of probably, I don't do as much technical work. I've got, say, putting wise, I'll have a couple of drills. Full swing wise, I'll have a couple of drills. I pretty much halve all the drills I'm doing into a couple of key ones, and then I try and spend very little time on them, but just use them as sort of like a calibration each day. And then yeah, I'm lucky here. There's a lot of guys that are retired, and there's a few young golfers here, and I just normally try and get out, and especially the back from like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I try and just play 18 holes a day with those boys. And yeah, and just sort of, I don't know, I love my hunting. I make sure I get out for a hunt before I go away and scratch that itch. And then yeah, so no, yeah, that'd be the one thing I do. I sort of, yeah, I just sort of, I simplify it. I have a couple of sits down with the coach, make sure that we're really happy with a couple of things that we've got doing, but we're sort of processing through, and set some goals with him. And yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, we sort of change our drills. We have a few, we go to a few more performance drills. So to finish, I have to hold this putt. To to finish, I have to chip in 3 times or whatever it might be. But yeah, sort of go a lot more to those to try and just get sharper. So then
Yeah, for sure.
when you get out there, you can be.
More game orientated and less focus on the swing and a little bit more
Yeah,
ball in the hole type scenario. Yeah, obviously
yeah,
that's the game, isn't it? So, yeah, I think that's key for people listening. If even if you're a week to week golfer, just realize that when you're playing the game, don't try and search for something in your swing. You just find a feel, find a rhythm, and go out there and get the ball around.
yeah, definitely. And that's, I think, it's easy to sort of get caught up on your swing and it's not perfect. And
Yeah.
yeah, and just trying to find those games which you enjoy playing, which are still, giving you an outcome at the end.
Well, mate, I really appreciate your time. I had a great chat with you. I loved having a chat with you. So, and great to catch up. And I wish you well with your hip and your recovery. And obviously, when you get back out there up in Asia this year and for the Australasian tour at the end of this year. So, I'll be looking out for you. Any shout outs to your sponsors, or how do we follow you?
Just sort of Instagram mainly, Ben Campbell 09. And then, yeah, no, I'm just very thankful for sort of the people, I've had a couple of very big injuries, and, I've been very lucky with the sponsors I've got, sort of the Davies family here, which is the Milford track. And they have a company here called Ultimate Hikes, and, they've got a few things here with the ski fields, and they've been, massive supporters of me. They've always, no matter, even if when I'm injured, sort of always reaching out. And yeah, like I couldn't have done it without them. And then also the Edwards family as well. So he's Hamish is sort of was one of the founders of Xero and the accounting software. And yeah, like I've been lucky to meet those two families that have really helped me in these tough times. And it's it's important to have those people because everyone wants to help you when you're playing well. It's when things aren't going well, that those people that are always there making sure that
Yeah.
you've got enough money to pay for everything, and that you're happy, and those people have been awesome to me. So Millbrook down here as well. So no, and that's the exciting thing coming up. Trying to do a little bit more with them, and in these tough times, try and hopefully they do open up the borders between Australia and New Zealand, and people can come here and play golf in the this sort of coming summer and around Christmas time and that. So yeah, try and do a bit of work with those people and try and get some people here. And if the golf's not going, then I'll sort of try and do some play packages and things like that coming up. So yeah, no, it's just very lucky to have a great base here in Queenstown. And
I've never been over there, mate. Can you believe it? So, yeah.
no, you have to come over. There's sort of 4 or 5 great golf courses here, and there's plenty to do. And yeah, no, I think that's the cool thing here. Golf's getting bigger, and there's things for everything here. There's vineyards, there's walks, there's every activity under the sun you can do. It's sort of adventure activity, and I think it's just a great place to bring the family, and everyone can go do different things. So it's a great place to live.
Nice, mate. Nice, mate. Well, thanks again, mate, and all the best to you for this year, and we'll look out and follow your progress.
Awesome. No, great to see you and catch up, and yeah, hopefully get out for a game of golf soon.
Sounds good, Benny. Cheers, mate.